Before I begin, this is more of a guided meditation, so if you'd like to just adopt your meditation posture now, you can begin and close your eyes while I translate this simple instructions, and then just carry on meditating through. So at this time, we've come here to give importance to our lives in order to develop our lives and cultivate peace and a feeling of inner coolness. And this is something which we should give great importance to. And for this feeling of ease and coolness to arise, we have to cultivate a practice. We call this Dhamma practice. Very simply, we begin to be aware of our mind. There's no need to be concerned about the past. No need to worry and speculate about the future. Simply bring the mind into the present moment. As an object of meditation, we can pick up the theme of the nature of our body. The nature of our body is that it has breath. Breath coming in and breath going out. Be aware of the in-breath. Be aware of the out-breath. We restrain our sense faculties, our sense organs, close our eyes, and establish awareness. The awareness which knows very clearly the in-breath and knows the out-breath. And we mustn't allow those thoughts or emotions or moods which obscure our clarity, feelings like drowsiness or concern and agitation, confusion, restlessness to arise. We can just stay with the breath. Stay with the breath, not for a very long time. Around about 20 minutes is enough, just enough to calm the mind and bring on a feeling of freedom from concern and anxiety. This is the mind of letting go, a relaxed mind. Feelings, thoughts which aren't uncomfortable or unpleasant. There's ease. So please, everybody, we can firmly make a firm determination, establish the mind very clearly in order to deepen our understanding of the very nature of the mind and the mental process. I ask for leave from the Sangha, my fellow Dhamma practitioners, monastics, to speak now, and I extend my blessings to everybody here who's come, everybody come out of your interest in Dhamma, seeking truth. May you find happiness and grow in Dhamma. Today is an opportunity for all of us to come together and meet. This gives rise to a mutual exchange of views and thoughts. And what we are discussing, what we are interested in, is the subject of the job or the role we have with regard our practice in our daily lives, living our daily lives. And this is something which, coming together, is a way of supporting one another and fostering a mutual support. So today this gathering and what I will say will be about this and nothing else, how we live our lives. And it's something which we all do and we should take a great interest in. You can call it health. We all need bodily health, physical health, to be strong and free from unwanted diseases and sickness. But we also need to develop mental health, mental well-being, inner wellness, which leads to peace of mind and happiness. And this is something which is of great benefit to us. It gives rise to friendship, a sense of interrelatedness, freedom from enmity and arguing. For good health, though, we have to know how to look after ourselves. It needs knowledge and understanding. The bodily aspect, looking after our bodies, is a serious job. It's something which takes up much of our time every day. We have to know what things we need and what things to avoid. For example, food. We always need food, but we need to know moderation. If we don't know the right amount, this will lead to our discomfort, even problems arising. If we do know the correct foods and the appropriate amounts, then we can maintain a certain level of bodily health. But even the physical process of food has its downsides. It does lead to suffering intrinsically. As we take food, we digest food, and we process it, and we have to find somewhere to ease ourselves. So this is understanding the process of physical health. This is one aspect of seeing how the physical process, the body works. And we have to learn how to practice and be circumspect in the right way. So bodily health is something which sustains our life. But mental health is the same. And the mind needs food, just like the body. So today I will speak and give advice regarding how to develop the mind in a way which is of benefit, both for this society and ourselves. And if we are to support society and carry it on, this will be benefit for later generations. So today we've come to understand and deepen our understanding of this area, this topic of inner health, inner well-being, carrying the theme of health, bodily and mental health. These two types of health are really what we can call the nature of existence. Nature is something of great value, and something else which is part of nature and something of great value is life, our life. Something which we call valuable has to be beneficial, and we have to learn how to use and harness nature and understand it with true awareness. So when we're talking about nature, we could also talk about natural resources. These are something which we have the ability to study. And the natural resources which we find on the earth are of value if we know how to use them well, how to harness them in order to be of benefit and value. And for this we need the right tools. We use tools in life in order to use or exploit nature so that it's a benefit to us. And so we have our bodies and we're able to create physical tools, but it's the same when we are developing and understanding inner health and our inner resources, the mind. We can observe the mind and sometimes see that it feels contracted or not peaceful. There's no feeling of coolness or ease. At other times the mind is having fun, delighting, and this leads to a kind of happiness, the kind of happiness that most people want. But these are states, feelings, emotions which we should observe and ask ourselves, what exactly are these states? What's going on? And in time we see, if we observe the mind, we see that the mind bound up with aversion or delight is in some ways covered up. It's not very clear, like an object which is somewhat obscured. You can't see it very clearly. So the tool we need to use to observe the mind clearly is what we call Dhamma, or practicing Dhamma. Practicing Dhamma means developing the mind which is very clearly grounded and knows very clearly the present moment. When you know the present moment, then all tension, feelings of anxiety, feelings of uptight fade, and in its place, ease or letting go, a relaxed mood arises. There's a knowing. We call this sati, which is mindfulness, and sampajanya, clear comprehension or awareness. We develop self-awareness in all four postures, whether standing, walking, sitting or lying down, and all our interactions with society, using these, what we could call our media or our information or communication channels, the eye, ear, nose, tongue, body and mind. This is how we relate to the outside world. And practicing Dhamma means cultivating mindfulness. In Thai we have the expression, the puru, be the one who knows, develop awareness, to see oneself. We can take ourselves and our experience, pick it up as our object of mindfulness. So when we're relating to society in our daily interactions, we do need our mind. We're using our mind all the time. Because we're social beings, we don't live in isolation or alone. We like to live in pairs or in groups, families. Society means coming together as a group. And so this is a great benefit if we really know how to do this. But we have to be very cautious with our interactions. And so it's with mindfulness, sati, that we develop knowing. Sometimes we feel delight, happy, satisfied with what we get. Sometimes we feel unhappy, averse. We reject, we push away the experiences we're having. And these kind of emotions, delight and aversion, if we observe them clearly, we'll see that these are the things which will always give rise to more negativity, more enmity. We see that often our tension or dissatisfaction, feelings of unhappiness, are something which builds up inside us and rises when thoughts or memories build up inside us. We call this mano sanya cetana. These thoughts, these memories build up and bubble up until we can't stand them anymore, and then will manifest as some external action, body or speech. So we have to learn to observe our mind, observe our moods, see the world of our thoughts, and see how they arise, but how our moods and emotions are the things which cloud our mind. Just like water is something which we all need. The body is made up primarily of water, and so it's vital to our lives. But we need safe water. We need it to be clean and filtered, so that when we drink water, we know it's not harmful for us. So with regard, there's an expression in Thai, the water of the mind, with regard our hearts, our feelings, our thoughts. When we observe our thoughts, at first we see that actually we very often are deluded by our thoughts, because we think of our thoughts as ourselves, we think of our thoughts as ours. But the Buddha and the enlightened ones have always taught us not to think like this, to think in a very different way. In order to see this for ourselves, we have to develop a mind which inclines towards letting go, a mind which is peaceful. And we need mindfulness. We need to develop more and more mindfulness, because our regular mindfulness, or our regular inherent levels of mindfulness, are often just not enough. So we actually have to train and develop, find ways or techniques or methods, practices, in order to increase mindfulness. And so whatever technique which leads to increased peacefulness, stillness of mind, a sense of seclusion, these are techniques which we can use. Secluded from what? Peace removed, or removed from what? From the people and the things around us, from being bound up and caught up with the external world. And so this is what we call a pure mind. This is how to develop a pure mind. This means a mind which is not dangerous. A mind which is not dangerous is the mind which is still and at peace. So when developing mindfulness, this to be compared to building up our inner strength, our tools. in order to do the necessary work or the task we have for understanding ourselves better. And we can actually sketch out a plan and examine or survey the terrain that we're working with in order to develop ease in our lives and letting go. So what is the terrain? How do we scout the terrain? Well, the first is by understanding and observing the physical aspects or elements of our life. So what do we see? We can see very clearly that we have these bodies. Our bodies are an accumulation or a gathering of various natural elements, natural properties, what we call physical matter. You all know this very well for yourselves, your own physical body. And you can investigate, we can look at it in the light of elements. We traditionally can divide the body up into various elements. We talk about the earth element, that's solidity, the wind element, the flowing process in the body, fire element, that's heat in the body, water element, anything that's liquid in the body, and also akasa, space element, those hollows, empty places in the body, and the last element is the aspect of consciousness, the mind. So it's a way of dividing up the mind and body into various elements, traditional Asian, Buddhist or Indian way of examining the body. And if we see that the body is just physical matter or elements or minerals, or however we look at it, we see that we don't own the body. We don't have any rights to control it, because it's just nature. And seeing this makes the mind peaceful straight away. Just to see your body, the external form, as hair of the head, hair of the body, nails, teeth, skin, various physical, material properties. If we develop this perception more and more, then letting go arises. We see the body is just a body. It's not ours. It's not us. It's just nature doing its job. And when detachment arises, we can let go. And then we're able to live lives where we don't harm ourselves. It's not in any way disadvantageous to ourselves. Nothing in the world, nothing that arises around us, what we call the worldly dhammas, can overcome us. The worldly dhammas are things like praise and blame, gain and loss, fame and obscurity, and happiness and suffering itself. These are the things which always make us agitated and will prevent our peaceful and cool mind from arising if we don't understand the truth of how the world works and we're attached to these things. Say praise, for example. If we're praised and we get attached to praise, then it's very easy to get deluded and we can get carried away with ourselves. We say get a big ego. Blame is equally dangerous. If you get blamed, then naturally most people, the mind is straight away unhappy. You feel agitated. You can even see yourself in a very negative light. But in time we see that this kind of reaction to praise and blame is simply because we delude ourselves on one level. These are things which we can't avoid. It's simply the nature of society to always have praise and always have blame. But if we get negative on account of these things, then we'll make it worse by creating enmity, anger, and so suffering builds up inside us, and all the other unwholesome states like jealousy or criticism in turn. So one way to work with these things is to see that if somebody's criticizing us, then it's probably because of some aspect in their life, something which is bothering them. They're not feeling well. They themselves are ill at ease or suffering. So we can respond just like a nurse. A nurse who looks after sick people knows very well that when people are sick and in pain, and they're often in a bad mood and can say and do things which are unpleasant or grumpy. But a good nurse knows this and sees this. And so when somebody's not well, then they help them. So if somebody criticizes us, we can respond by seeing that, well, their mind at that moment is not in a balanced state. They're having some kind of difficulty in life, or they're physically unhappy. And that brings on a natural sense of wanting to help them. So this is one example, one way that we can learn how to understand and relate correctly to the outside world. And this kind of understanding arises when we just see that ourselves, the mind and the body, is just nothing other than nature. And when we see that, then there's really no problem. Just like, also take the example of this place, or the earth. If we look at it in one way, we can say this is our planet, or this is our place. But just look at it differently. See ourselves as beings from outer space that have just come here and are just using the earth for a short period of time, and then we're going to disappear from the planet. That way we are able to let go. And so we develop what we call Kaya Viveka, usually translated as body seclusion or aloofness from the body, not being attached to the body. We see it as just a vehicle which we're using in our lives. There's no need to get concerned and agitated and think too much about it, or not get caught up and deluded by the physical world, sensual objects. And when we let go of the physical, external world, we feel light straight away. We feel fresh and enthusiastic when we see that nature is just nature. So this is one aspect, one side of things, but we have to look further, deeper, and understand about the mind. The mind you can describe as having positive states and negative states, states which make us happy and states which make us suffer. And when we see the mind with clarity, then darkness fades and light arises, problems fade, and the mind will be cool. Cultivating awakening is about developing enough inner strength to be able to follow very clearly and observe the mind. For a healthy mind, it's inner wellness. We have to observe the mind and our thoughts, our moods, our emotions. The mind is like somebody doing a job, working in this particular terrain or in this area, and we say that the mind is the chief, or the mind is like the overseer in this case. There's a very famous teaching of the Buddha. It's from the Dhammapada. Mano pubangama maya mano seta mano maya, which means mind is the forerunner of things, mind made of things, mind is the chief. So if the mind is doing its job as the chief, or the forerunner, or that which is most important, then if we see or experience life with wrong understanding, what we call miccha ditthi, wrong view, then this is very dangerous. This is darkness, and it will lead to a lack of peace and a lack of happiness. So we have to study the mind very carefully. It's what we call the citta sankharas, the proliferations of the mind, our intentional volitional formations. And all those things which cause the mind to proliferate arise from an experience or a judgment of good and bad. Delight or good we call the pleasant mental experience, the ittaram, wishful thought. Negativity is the anittaram, undesirable thought. And this, but we see that delight and aversion is really an illusion. It's these thoughts of wanting and not wanting lead to a lack of freedom. With mindfulness, we experience this sense of being part of nature more and more. We can talk of a wholesome mind and an unwholesome mind, kusala and akusala. But really, as we practice Dhamma, we see that both the mind which is dwelling on wholesome things and unwholesome things, both of those states are still not peaceful and still. We need to develop mindfulness, what we call the puru, awareness, or the knowing, and to be right with the mind, following it, arising every mind moment, to see the mind as it really is. Just like we have the equipment or tools to dispel darkness, lights, and when we turn them on, we see everything very clearly. So rather than seeing our minds and our thoughts as taking them as self, we're the owner of our thoughts and our mind, see them simply as natural phenomena, aspects of the mental realm. The mind arises, our thoughts remain for a while, and then they fade away. Here we live, we're near the ocean. But just look at how the oceans work. It's just this natural cycle. The currents and the tides, waves build up, and then crash against the shore and break up. But when we see the mind in this light, then we abandon these strong clinging to this sense of self-importance, or even the strong experience, conceiving of a self. The mind is peaceful. Just like a fire, when a fire goes out and dies down, then there's coolness. We abandon this, we let go of heat and intoxication and suffering. So developing mindfulness in all four postures. In the peaceful mind, the Buddha said this is what leads to the highest happiness. Nati santiparang sukham. There's no happiness greater than that of a peaceful mind. But with regard to happiness, external happiness or external pleasure, the pleasure that we get from the outside world, can have a danger. It can lead to our agitation. It's like imprisonment, this dis-ease of always wanting to get the things we want. And it's just like being in prison, we're never free. But when the mind is peaceful, it's like being set free. The mind is cool, the mind is at ease, and all dangers in our lives disappear. So this is true happiness, this inner happiness, can be likened to our real, like a treasure trove, or a real wealth, the real wealth of our humanity. Our life has incomparable value. And what we have to give great importance to is this task of being truly human, cultivating our human qualities. The Buddha said that being a human being, the word is manussa, which literally means a being with a high mind. Being human is a resource, is something of great value and has great potential. And so the highest gain, the greatest thing that we can have is this very human birth. So it's our job then to train ourselves, to develop ourselves and improve ourselves. We call this bhavana, which means literally development. Bhavana maya panya means wisdom which arises based on development, mental cultivation, mental training. So on this occasion, I have nothing special to offer today, but simply using these words, using this talk in order to give some suggestions of how to foster health, mental health and bodily health in all various ways. So looking at the time, that's probably enough for now. I wish for all of you to grow and develop in Dhamma, grow in spiritual qualities. May you all be happy and well. And ultimately, finally, may everybody here experience the true happiness of peace and a mind of liberation.